Welcome to Hockey Whiz Talks podcast. In this podcast, I preview the Metropolitan Division. In the order in which I think they will finish at season's end. 1. New York Rangers. The New York Rangers have the best team on paper in the Metro because they are led by a slew of superstars like Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad, Adam Fox, and goaltender Igor Shesterkin. The Rangers also have great leaders on the team with Jacob Trouba and Chris Kreider. Newly signed free agent Vincent Trocheck, 2020 first overall pick Alexis Lafreniere, 2019 second overall pick Kaapo Kakko, and another former first round pick Philip Hedl will be important supporting players on the team this season. Besides the top end talent on the team, the Rangers also have some solid role players on the team like Barclay Goodrow, Sammy Blais, and Ryan Graves. These three players bring physicality and an edge to the lineup. The defense is filled with young studs like Adam Fox, Keandre Miller, and Braden Schneider, which will make the team tough to play against. Igor Shesterkin may be the single reason why I give the Rangers an edge over other teams in the division, because he single-handedly steals games whenever his team's scoring dries up and his team is being severely outshot. The New York Rangers are the favorites in the Metropolitan Division, but that doesn't mean that they are a lock, because they have many young players in the lineup, which could hold them back a bit. 2. Carolina Hurricanes. The Carolina Hurricanes should compete with the New York Rangers for the division title, but they lack the superstar talent the Rangers have. The Hurricanes already have a great core, and they were also able to add Brent Burns to bolster their defense and Max Pacioretty for nothing. Although Pacioretty is expected to miss 4 months with an Achilles injury, they will have $7 million of long-term IR cap relief to acquire another player to replace him. In free agency, Carolina signed Paul Stastny and Andre Kasse to one-year deals. These are two good depth signings that will allow Carolina to roll 4 lines. While the Canes don't appear to be the most dangerous team on paper, they are good at all positions and are a well-coached team led by Rod Brind'Amour, who makes the team tough to play against, especially on home ice. Frederik Andersen and Antti Raanta will share goaltending duties and should be in the running for the Jennings again this season. The Carolina Hurricanes are legit contenders in the Eastern Conference and will battle the Rangers for first in the division. And now a word from our sponsor. Check out my scouting blog at hockeywiz777scouting.com. Listen to my scouting blog podcast on anchor.fm/hockeywiz777scouting. 3. Pittsburgh Penguins. The Pittsburgh Penguins were able to lock up both Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang to long-term contracts. This ensures that they will finish their careers with Pittsburgh. The Pens also locked up Brian Rust to a 6-year contract worth $5.1 million per season and Rickard Rakell to a 6-year contract worth $5 million per season. Pittsburgh improved their defense with the acquisitions of Jeff Petrie from Montreal and Ty Smith, who was acquired in the John Marino trade from New Jersey. Jan Rutta, who won 2 Stanley Cups as a part of the Lightning, was brought in on a 3-year deal, and he is expected to bring some stability to the blue line. Tristan Jarry is expected to be the number 1 goalie in Pittsburgh, and the team will have to rely heavily on the 27-year-old goaltender. As if it wasn't apparent enough, Pittsburgh is trying desperately to win now and try to win another Stanley Cup while they still have Crosby on the team. Unfortunately, Pittsburgh may not be good enough to compete against teams like the Rangers and Carolina, as the team is just too old. 4. Washington Capitals. The Washington Capitals perhaps had the steal of the 2022 draft when they drafted Ivan Miroshnichenko 20th overall. Miroshnichenko is a top 5 talent, but due to health complications and his Russian status, he dropped in the draft. Washington let both of their goalies from last season leave with the plan of going forward with Darcy Kemper as their number 1 goalie, and they also signed Charlie Lindgren as his backup. Besides adding Kemper, the Capitals also signed Dylan Strome and traded for Connor Brown, which should help in replacing Nicklas Backstrom, who is expected to miss next season after hip surgery. Washington's defense is definitely a concern after losing Justin Schultz, and losing Backstrom is a huge blow on the defensive side of the puck, as he was one of their best all-around centers. The Capitals will need their depth players like Lars Eller, Marcus Johansson, and Connor Sheary to step up. Alex Ovechkin will continue his pursuit of Wayne Gretzky's goal record, so we should still expect him to be one of the league's premier goal scorers. The Washington Capitals should still be a playoff caliber team because of their veteran core, but they might not make it far in the playoffs. Check out my hockey blog at hockeywiztalkshockey.blogspot.com. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at hockeywiz777. 5. Columbus Blue Jackets. The Columbus Blue Jackets are the most improved team in the NHL. At the 2022 draft, Columbus drafted David Jiricek 6th overall and Denton Matvichuk 12th overall. These two picks instantly make their prospect pool much better, especially on defense. In free agency, the Blue Jackets signed Johnny Gaudreau to a 7-year deal worth $9.5 million per season, and Eric Gudbranson to a 4-year deal worth $4 million per season. After signing Gaudreau, Columbus locked up Patrick Laine to a 4-year deal worth $8.7 million per season, which would eventually force Columbus to trade away one of their better goal scorers in Oliver Borkstrand to Seattle due to cap restrictions. Two young players to pay attention to this season are Cole Sillinger and Kent Johnson. They will ultimately decide if Columbus makes the playoffs or not. If they live up to the hype, they could make the playoffs. If not, they will miss the playoffs. Elvis Merzlikins will be the number 1 goalie and is expected to have a fantastic year with an improved team in front of him. The Columbus Blue Jackets have the potential to be a playoff team, but they have stiff competition in their division, so they will need either the Penguins or Capitals to underperform. 6. New York Islanders. The New York Islanders were relatively quiet this offseason, but they did make a huge trade to acquire Alexander Romanov as part of a 3-team trade along with Chicago, which sent Kirby Dach to Montreal. Both Noah Dobson and Alexander Romanov needed to be re-signed, and Lou managed to lock them up both for 3 more years, Dobson at $4 million per season, and Romanov at $2.5 million per season. Matt Barzal is the player to watch this year because he is an RFA next year, and the Isles are rumored to have fired Barry Trotz because they did not get along. So Barzal is under immense pressure to be the star player this year. With so many veteran players on the team, it would be too difficult for the Islanders to rebuild, so they should try to make a trade at the deadline to acquire a veteran goal scorer. Ilya Sorokin is expected to take the reins as the number 1 goalie, but Semyon Varlamov is still a capable starting goalie in the NHL, so it does open up the possibility of a trade down the road, as there are a couple teams that will be in search of a veteran netminder with playoff experience at the deadline. The New York Islanders may not make the playoffs if they do not make a trade for another goal scorer because the team is simply not good enough to compete with the other teams in their division. Listen to the Hockey Wiz Talks podcast on Podbean and Spotify. Check out my YouTube channel at Lucas Aoyang. 7. New Jersey Devils. The New Jersey Devils are arguably the most improved team in the Metro, but they still might not be good enough to make the playoffs yet in their division. The Devils had the 2nd overall pick in the 2022 draft and selected Simon Nemec. Then in the 2nd round, selected Seamus Casey. The team will surely take their time developing Nemec, as he should be a large part of their D-core alongside Dougie Hamilton and Luke Hughes down the road. New Jersey also acquired goaltender Vitek Vanacek at the draft, then re-signed him to a 3-year deal. Vanacek should form a solid goaltending tandem alongside Mackenzie Blackwood. In free agency, New Jersey signed Andre Palat to a 6-year deal. He will bring leadership, veteran presence, and playoff experience to the lineup. Brendan Smith was brought in on a 2-year deal. He is a veteran defenseman who brings a physical presence to the blue line. To bolster their defense for the present, the Devils acquired John Marino from the Pittsburgh Penguins for Ty Smith and a draft pick. Marino is a sound defensive defenseman who can log heavy minutes and help kill penalties. The Devils have a lot of good young talent on the roster, and with Jack Hughes primed to break out as a legit superstar next season, the Devils definitely could surprise some people next season. Even though the Devils may ultimately miss the playoffs, they will take huge strides this season so they could become legit contenders when Luke Hughes joins the team next season. 8. Philadelphia Flyers. The Philadelphia Flyers are by far the worst team in the Metropolitan Division. They have no superstar player and are stuck with a bunch of overpaid veterans who can't live up to those contracts. Sean Couturier, who missed a vast majority of last season with a back injury, should be back in the fold this season, but Ryan Ellis' status for next season is still uncertain. The Flyers made a few minor moves in the offseason. The first move was trading for Tony DeAngelo, then re-signing him to a 2-year deal at $5 million per season. Then in free agency, Philly signed Nick Delarier and Justin Braun to 1-year deals. Then in free agency, Philly signed Nick Delarier and Justin Braun, which does help their depth a bit. Carter Hart is expected to be the starting goalie for Philly, with Felix Sandstrom penciled in to be his backup. With the Flyers expected to miss the playoffs and be in the lottery, it would make sense for them to trade their veteran wingers like JVR, Cam Atkinson, and even Travis Konechny. In comparison to the other teams in the Metro, the Flyers just don't stack up well, and it will be a rough season for them.